Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon when you consume your media. Welcome to Run It Back, episode number 99. I'm your host, Menelik Fernandez. Thank you to all who join, watch, listen, etc. Hope you continue to find value in it and welcome. The premise of Run It Back remains the same. We take teams that have played previously and we run it back, so to speak, where we talk about intricacies of the game, how we prepare, what goes in a scout, how we make adjustments, how we evaluate ourselves post game, and then we obviously go through a little bit of film and talk about, would we do this again? Hindsight's 2020, as they say. Since the beginning, I've been pretty fortunate to have coaches from the game in question join, and today remains the same. So today we're exploring a game of the Skill Factory versus Keystone, and I'm most fortunate to have a guest who I've been trying to track down for a while to get on here. Trey Scotti joining us. Trey, welcome to the show. If you give me a second here, I'll try and do you justice with a nice warm welcome. Trey is the head coach at the Skill Factory for just under a year now. He was a video coordinator and prior to that, a GA at Xavier over the course of just under 4 years. And prior to that, he was the head manager at Indiana University for just under 4 years. So really excellent background at some fine institutions. Trey, I'm enthralled in having you join. It's really great to be able to welcome you finally. Thanks for jumping on, brother.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, just honestly for everybody. And I know that COVID, we were just talking before we went live, COVID starting up all these different Zooms and getting to meet a lot of people and learn. And I got to get back into doing a better job of listening to this kind of stuff. I think sometimes it gets lost. And so really appreciate you just kind of taking the time to have me on and reset my brain selfishly a little bit, just thinking about, because we get so caught up, I think, in recruiting and workouts and other stuff that's important, right? And I think sometimes I forget to put time aside for myself to get better. So just number one, appreciate you doing this for everybody, but selfishly, thank you for having me on as well. So,
hey, my pleasure. So give me a little bit of background. All right. Tell me, tell me about the Skill Factory. Tell me about where you are in your season. Tell me about what league you play in. For anybody who doesn't know, give us the rundown of where you're at and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, so we're a prep school. So we're high school. I have freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors. TSF basically started about 12 years ago as a player development company. So we started training pros for the draft and year round. And so there's two founders, both are high level minds organizationally and basketball wise. And so even right now, we've got guys here for the pre-draft. So guys are here, they're working out, they're getting a skill workout in, they're coming back, they're getting a shooting workout, they're getting lifts, massage, PT, playing open gyms, everything that they would do. So that's really where the company became known at first. And we've got a lot of guys who are current NBA names, like Bones Highland for the Denver Nuggets. He was a guy who was in our pre-draft last year. OG Anunoby for the Raptors is a guy who's around regularly. So we're in Atlanta. So there's guys like you get being in that market as well. And so about 8 years ago, a guy named Rob Johnson, he played Division I. He basically got involved with TSF and said he wanted to start a post-grad team. So post-grad is those kids who it's like a JUCO year without using a year of eligibility. So you may have hurt your shoulder your senior year. You go and you play that 1 year to get exposure, get scholarship offers. You may be a kid who's got Division II offers. You feel like you're on the cusp of getting D1, you may take that year to play another year in front of college coaches and hopefully go from D2 to D1. There's a variety, you may have bad grades. You have to retake, you can retake up to 3 classes before you go JUCO. So we've got guys that are around that need to be around academically. And so Rob is really the guy who deserves all the credit for putting that together. Along with TSF, those two, combined to make a monster of that program. They won the prep school post-grad national championship in the COVID year. He sent guys all over Division I, high major, low major, mid major, D2 JUCO. I mean, he has got players everywhere. And so he actually went to Illinois State as an assistant last year. And then unfortunately that staff was let go. So he's back coaching post-grad, but he chose to do that. He could have gone a lot of places. So we got the pinnacle in that industry. And then also like 5 or 6 years ago, we started an AAU program. And just last year was our first year on the EYBL, which is the top Nike circuit. Our 2024 team won the Peach Gym last year. Our 2023 team, again, not that rankings are the end all be out, but like there's 3 5-stars on there. There's 2 other top 100 players. I'm actually an assistant for our 2024 team as well. So I do that a little bit in the summer. And so they did that. Long story short, through COVID, I met a guy who was the program director for prep Post-Grad. He said, hey, we're starting a high school team. Would you be interested? And I didn't really think I would be, honestly, but I interviewed, was fortunate enough to get it, and I still didn't think I'd take it. So I came down to Atlanta, checked everything out, and I thought, man, this is like an unbelievable situation. And I think when the Post-Grad is at the pinnacle of Post-Grad basketball, your EYBL program is winning Peach Jam championships, and they just got in the AAU industry a couple of years ago. It's like, why can't we do the same at high school? Obviously, the resources, the talent, the people running everything, like that's probably not an accident that they're having this much success. And I had been, I was been toying with the idea of coaching high school, AAU, doing player development, something in that. And this really had an opportunity that I was looking for, probably even a little bit better than what I imagined it would be, like in terms of making up a situation. And so I kind of felt like it was the best path for me. Go on from like manager, GA, video. I was even ops there for a little bit at the very end. I felt like it was just a good branding opportunity, a good like experience in terms of coaching and being around players. And long story short, that's how I got to TSF, and that's who we are. So
love it. Love it. Where are you in your season? And tell us a little bit about your opponent, Keystone, here.
Yeah. So you're saying where are we at with the game specifically?
Yeah, like what part of the season is this?
This is the very end. This is our last game of the year, and so the Geico is like the top 8 teams in the country, which obviously that's really tough. So we weren't a top 8 team in the country. So this was a showcase game in Dayton, which it's called the Top Gun, which is a really rich history. It's called Dayton Flying to the Hoop. They have a tournament in January, and then they just follow up with a prep event in March, and there's a lot of really strong teams there. And so it was our last game of the year. The wheels have been falling off a little bit in terms of personnel. Like we had one kid get COVID this week. Our backup 4-5 man, our best player, Cam Kraft, who was a top 60 player in the country. We didn't have him for the last 3 games of the season. And we were also missing our backup point guard with injuries. And so we were missing at least, 2 of our top 7, 3 of our top 9. One other kid in our rotation had been out for 2 weeks with an injury before that. So we only practiced like twice coming back into the game. So I just remember, honestly, at the time, we were just we really makeshifted a lot of what we did at this part of the season in this game specifically compared to what we did the rest of the year. And truthfully, it was just a matter of depth that we were just trying to hold on for our lives here with this last game. So.
Gotcha. So how do you prepare, and how much time do you have in between the prior game and this one?
Yeah, it's a great question, and like you're gonna be disappointed in this answer, but like being like in the Big East or like in Indiana, like in Indiana, those coaches were watching 8 games out. At Xavier, you're watching 5 to 7, depending on the opponent or the coach, and you've got every detail down. And I started the year like that for us, and as I got going, I realized that wasn't the most important way to allocate my time for a few reasons. And so I got to the point where we'd be watching about 3 games in advance. Keystone, we had played earlier in the year. And so I really watched that one as heavily as anything. But we also, this was on a Sunday, we played a game on Saturday. So in the prep world, you're playing Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. And so with quick turnarounds, like I usually don't spend as much time watching game film of that second opponent in advance. I kind of focus, really my first focus.
Trey, can I jump in for 1 second? I got a little bit of a glare on you. Can you move this way just a little bit? Is that possible? Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah,
that's
perfect.
better.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good. But yeah, so I think self-scout is a lot more important at this level, prep specifically. I think it's like teaching more than like, and prep, again, like we want to win every game, but our goal is to get guys ready for college. So as much as we want to win every game, I'm more worried about guys learning a pack line defense or different ball screen coverages or, pace of a cut. To me, I value that. I think we get a lot more out of that. So we'll watch some personnel as a team. I'll put together a personnel edit just like you would, like at a Big East or a Big Ten school, because since I have a background in video doing that, so it's kind of easy for me. But in terms of the team stuff, full transparency, a lot of prep teams don't run a whole lot either. So like it's not like you're game planning for a ton of actions. Like I across the board believe more in guarding personnel than actions to begin with. And if a team, let's say they run a ton of post entry stuff, obviously in practice, we're going to put together a shell to guard that. Or if they run a lot of off screen staggers, we're going to spend a lot of time covering that. But usually it's a lot of one ball screen action, clear it out. Teams will run some UOBs that we prepare for. But truthfully, I was way more worried about us as a team than really what other teams were doing throughout the first year of prep.
So I love it. And I think this is highly informative for somebody who doesn't have the background that you do. Obviously, you come from video and have spent a lot of time cutting up clips, etc. So they're fortunate to be able to have you. When you do lean towards your personnel, what are you putting in? What are you kind of looking at? Like, is it just tendencies, traits, like this guy scores better going right or over his right shoulder, that kind of stuff? And what would those edits look like in terms of time and sequencing of everything?
Yeah. So in terms of time and sequencing, like, attention spans are not very good, right, for high school kids. And so I like a 15-minute presentation. And let's say they have two dominant players. We'll watch 15 clips of those guys. And as we go down the role players, we may dwindle all the way down to 5 clips, for guys in their top 7 in their rotation. And I'm showing they're good and they're bad. Like we'll play certain, we played a 5, I won't name them, but we played a 5-star in a game this year, very talented, obviously to have that kind of ranking. But I felt like he just put his head down and never found anybody. And so it's like, we're showing clips of him driving into 3 guys, pausing it, showing how it doesn't matter. He ain't kicking that thing. And it's like, you guys cannot be hugging off the ball. And so, guys force some bad stuff. We'll show some of that. And then obviously we're going to show what they do well. So as you said, right, they could be a good, hey, you got to find this guy at all times. He's an elite catch and shoot guy. Hey, listen, like, we may play a guy. I may show 10 clips of a guy and all 10 are offensive rebounds. Cause it's like, not that the guy can't do anything else, but it's like, if this guy makes 5 offensive rebounds against us, like we're going to have a hard time winning this game. And so I'll more emphasize, like, I'm not even going through a guy's whole game. I really just like to emphasize like 1 or 2 points per player, unless it's a really, really special player. Cause again, throughout the course of a game, we switched a lot of screens defensively. We switched 1 through 4 almost all the time. And so matchups are getting lost throughout the game. And so it's not like one guy is worried about this one guy the whole time. I just felt like for us, as long as we had a basic understanding of who guys were and how we defended guys of that nature, like it to me goes all the way back to week 1 and closeouts. Like, how do you close out? You guard your own personnel that way. So like we talked about Cam, who's a top 40 player or whatever. Like he's one of the best shot makers in the country. Well, like if you're guarding him in practice, you better close out with 2 high hands, like, and you better be up to touch, like he comes off a ball screen. Like you better not be, if you're a big, you better not be sitting in the paint or like he's just going to like, shoot a 3 off the dribble. And so as you learn to guard your teammates throughout practice, or if you're in practice, I think those rules then apply to who your personnel is that you're playing. So that's kind of how we teach it.
I love it. And I agree. Talk to me a little bit about the self-scout. How often are you doing things for your guys that are more on like what you do type deal? So is it like every game you're getting a little bit of video feedback, and what do you focus on in those?
So with the quick turnarounds in prep, and then again, it's not like I have a video coordinator or manager. So like by the time, like at Xavier, for those that don't know, it's like Coach Steele, who's the head coach there, my last 3 years, like I have the game on his computer the second he usually like gets on the bus after the game or on the plane at the latest. For me, like we don't have, like people aren't getting the games that quickly. So I'm just hoping to have it within 48 hours, have the hard copy, and I got to cut it. Right. My staff will take turns cutting games. And so with that, and then playing back-to-back games, our goal is to grab each guy at least once a week. And so for each guy, it's going to be relative to how he's playing, honestly. Like if you have 40 or 50 clips, that probably means you didn't play very well, and it might be 40 clips over 3 games of things you need to get better on. And then, 10 good. If you're a guy who's maybe not a guy who's not making as many mistakes, it might be 10 good and 10 bad. and we'll kind of go in sequences from particular tournaments or weekends. And honestly, that's just it's a manpower thing. But one of my assistant coaches, he was a graduate assistant in Division I. So, his dad was a high school coach. I like very lucky to have an assistant like that at this level. So I was comfortable between he and I. It's like, okay, the first half of the season, I'll take this half of guys, you'll take this half. And then at the semester, we flipped guys. And then, so it's not the same kid getting annoyed with me all the time. And when I'm correcting his mistakes, and then also that coach might be seeing I'm not seeing, and vice versa. So this year I'm trying to get at least one more experienced coach so we can break into groups of 3. Now we can flip those guys a couple times in the season, just so they don't feel like, I think kids feel like they're being picked on so easily, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. They get defensive. It's like, this is not an attack on you. This is an evaluation of your performance. So like, do you want to get better or not? If you want to, then I have to be able to provide you feedback here.
Yeah. And these kids have never watched film, and respect. And that's what I sell in recruiting respectfully. It's like they flipped on a game of YouTube with their dad and, oh man, good move. Oh man, why don't you shoot this? But like, they've never really watched film of like, hey, here's 5 clips of you not boxing out. Here's 5. Hey, here's why are you not in your gap? We've been in the pack line all year. We've never been in a full out deny. You're guarding a non-shooter. That guy out there with the ball is the best player on the other team. Why are you standing straight up, not nearly in? And it's stuff like that I found the kids have no experience. Like if you think about normal high school coaches, like their teachers or their ADs, they don't 100%. Have video backgrounds like that. They I literally made a salary doing this. And so that's not a shot at other people, but I think it's a strength of mine. To me, it's like, I almost compared to lifting weights the first time. You get like bigger and stronger the first 2 weeks. Like, my gosh, I've never done like, I think the first couple of times you watch film with these guys, it really caught on. Like we had a scrimmage against our post-grad before our first game. And like, we were doing a horrible job switching up into our man in their switching. And so all I showed defensively from wet scrimmage, here's 25 clips of us not switching up. And it's like, for a week, I hear the guys talking, man, once we learn to switch, we're going to be a really good defensive team. Now, we had like a million things to get better at, but with ball screens being so common, I was like, this is what we're getting better at this week. Like, we're going to be better at switching. And I felt like, again, like even the switching, we saw an uptick in our first actual game, just from having the opportunity to scrimmage, film it. And because we don't film every day in practice because of resources. And so, again, things like that is kind of what I'm going for with the self-scout. So
I got it. And I love it. It's interesting. Like you said, it's not a shot at, but like a lot of these guys don't even have film. Like I mean, it's just resources, obviously, at a lot of levels for sure.
And also I should have said this. So we'll do individuals once a week, and then we'll do a team session, usually as soon as I have time to finish all the film. So I like to try to do the first practice back just to get it out of our system. And again, that's like another 15-minute session. All right, guys, here's 10 clips of us making the extra pass. This is great. Keep that up. Okay, here is 10 clips of us in transition running to a spot and not a man, which we really struggled with, honestly. And like we had to show that all the time. And again, here's 10 clips. Boom, we're hitting the practice court. Like we maybe watched a full game twice the whole year, and that's because I was pissed about effort. Like, okay, you guys don't want to play hard. We're going to watch every effing clip, and I'm going to mother up you guys for an hour. Because
an hour, and you're going to deal with it because you didn't want to play hard. This was an effort thing,
and it's more
not
just
an ability
proving a point. Like one time I did like okay, the basic rules they've given you defensively. Every time they score, I want you guys to say, okay, we did what coaches said and they just scored, or we didn't follow the system. And it was like, I think it was like 67 of 70 points. The whole team was like, okay, yeah, we didn't do pack line. Or we didn't run back in transition. We didn't switch up. Oh, like something that we cover every day in practice. And so that's, again, but those are rare circumstances. We're doing that full game stuff. So
it's I find it interesting you run to a spot in defensive transition. I'd ask you to elaborate a little bit on that, because I find so much of defensive transition is just, as you say, effort and like cognition, understanding like something's happened, stop focusing on that, understand what you have to do next type deal.
Well, no, and our transition rules is you don't have a spot or a man. The problem is we be running to our man and leaving another guy wide open.
Right.
Whereas it's a scramble, and like we really, really struggled with that concept. Like the effort was bad at times from certain guys for sure, but it was more a recognition issue of like, okay, there's another guy running down the sideline. We know he's a really good 3-point shooter, but my man's over there. I need to get over there. Like, oh no, I got you. Okay, hey, you got mine. Like those emergency situations, I felt like we were horrible, to be honest, throughout the year. And so we got to find a year going into year 2 to get better in that area.
Well, I love it. I think it's I think there's 4 elements of the game: the defensive half court, defensive transition, offensive half court, and offensive transition. And of the 4, I think it's the one that I'm the worst at teaching, and I'm always asking questions about, and I rarely hear different or unique things there. It's really, like I said, a matter of just like cognition, like just understanding, being able to see the other 9 players on the floor, multiple efforts, all that kind of stuff more than anything.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, I just think these kids don't know how to play. And so I think one thing I've really observed, so it's like tonight I'm running an open gym, and like, a lot of our guys are from out of state, so I don't have my whole team here right now, but I'll invite kids from our AIU program, our high school, our post-grad, other kids in Atlanta that we know of, and we'll do 3 teams of 5, winner stays on. And the point is, like, I just don't think kids know how to win across the board. Like, the big fad is everybody has a workout guy. So like, as a team, we shot 40% from 3 as a high school team. That's incredible. That's an incredible number. But I felt like our guys were great. Let's go into the gym. Hey coach, can I get an extra workout? We were off the charts in that area. And I think guys that go prep, they kind of go for that reason. And so that kind of makes sense. But I felt like when it came to like winning time, like, okay, we're not letting this guy score. We're not letting this guy beat us. Hey, it's 15 seconds on the shot clock before half. We're going to get the last shot. I heard Sean and Archie Miller and the Van Gundy brothers, they were on a podcast talking about, when they were in college, it's like, if you're a freshman, you shoot a bad shot in open gym, you're about to get your butt chewed by the upperclassmen. And so like, I listened to that and I kind of agree. Even, I'm 28, so I graduated high school in 2013. All we did was play. I didn't know, nobody I knew had a trainer. Now, I wasn't some good player that all these people were pretending to want to train. So, but even the good players I knew, I never remember, I want my trainer. It was just open gym shots. And so I think the difference is the kids like pass shoot handle is better, but I think their feel for the game is worse as a result. So
yeah, and I definitely think it has a lot to do, just like you said, with the playing element. Like, I remember being at the local community center all the time, and the older guys, like you said, the upperclassmen, they would shit on you if you were taking bad shots or taking the wrong shots or stepping out of what you're supposed to do. So you start to get like a natural feeling of like, no, this is a good one to shoot. Whereas this one probably, the double pump fadeaway 3 is probably not the shot we want at this point in the game. Doesn't lead towards winning.
For sure.
That being said, let's go general to specific a little bit here in terms of either from the self-scout or the scout of your opponent. What did you kind of identify, like, I don't know, pace of play or matchups that you wanted to attack, or how many to the glass, any of those kinds of things? What did you sort of identify as the way that you could beat this team going in?
Well, Delquan Warren, he's a lefty point guard. I'll remember his number if we pulled up, but he's really good. He's a high major talent. He shredded us in ball screens in the first game. And like we were show to drop with our 5. So like, show up at the level, don't let them walk into a 3, but also don't let your guy behind you, which is tough. Now I felt like the 5s were not adequate at switching on the guards, which is why we had that coverage in. And so I felt like in the first game, they got lazy and they just sat back and they let this kid get downhill. And then he just killed us. I mean, we only lost by 3, but that kid had to have had created 20 points off ball screens. And so, especially with a quick turnaround, right? Like I said, we're not doing a whole lot of game planning. We don't have a practice in there to like, this is how we're doing this. So it's like, it's more one quick film session at the hotel, talking in the locker room, and let's roll. And so like, that was by far the biggest thing that we did in terms of stopping them. And then the other thing that we did was with our depth, we were playing about 5.5 guys. I played about 5 guys the whole game. I played one guy as few minutes, and that was to do with our depth in this particular tournament. I don't like playing that way. you can't do it a whole year. I actually did like it for a lot of reasons, but you can't do that throughout a whole season. Obviously, we're playing 35 to 40 games at high school. It's way
Right.
longer than normal high school. So what we did, and I just made this up with a couple of games left in the season. We would show zone for the first 10 seconds of the shot clock. Once I felt like everybody had a man in their region, I would yell out a command. We would switch to man. And so I think in the shot clock, it was really screwing some teams up. Like the game before, we played a team that I was talking, a lot of teams don't run stuff. ISA in Ohio, they run electric stuff for high school level. They run set after set, really good skilled offensive players. And I felt like, man, if we let them get into their sets, we were not a strong defensive team. We were much better. I was like, we have no chance to guard these guys. And so I felt like at least took them out of the origin of their sets the day before, and it worked pretty well. And so we stuck with that in game 2. And I think it just kind of confused them a little bit just into their possession. So between that and then the one kid specifically offensively, I mean, Keystone's really physical. They're really good offensive rebounding team, but I mean, it's effort, man. Box your guy out, like what, I mean, you're emphasizing that, but it's not like, hey guys, this is a game we better defensive rebound. Obviously you need to do that in every game. So those were the main points of emphasis as I look back.
So with your style of play and so many games and not as much prep time as you would like, etc., you're not opposed to, obviously, from what you're saying, showing different coverage types throughout the year, showing different defenses throughout the year, implementing things on the fly. You're not opposed to that?
I actually am, but I just felt like we had no choice at that time.
Interesting.
I felt like we had no choice. I felt like if we put the 5.5, 6 guys we were playing, and it was a track meet, I felt like we were just not going to win a straight up game in that whole, we lost the day before in overtime, and then we won this game down the stretch. And so I felt like we were not going to, I felt like we would maybe lost each game by double digits if we just stuck with what we were doing now. And that's because it's a Xavier philosophy. Like we do what we do and we're really good at it. That was kind of our, like, let's be the best at jumping sideline ball screens, like the best at it. Even if they know it's coming, we're so good at it, it doesn't matter type of thing. And so again, even though we didn't jump sidelines, like that was kind of my philosophy with our switching 1 through 4, show to a drop with the one, with the 5-man. And I just wanted us to get as good as we possibly could. But with the shot clock, I didn't want the game to be going up and down. We were a team that played slower anyways, even at full strength. And so now that we're losing our depth, it's like I wanted to slow the game down even more. I wanted fewer possessions. And so I felt like the zone, we practiced it for about 2 weeks. We slow burned it. We didn't just show it right away. We'd showed it in a week prior a little bit against a team that wasn't as strong as these two. And we didn't do very well with it, but I thought once we get into that second week, I thought we actually did a really good job. I got better at coaching it, not just the kids. I got better at knowing when to kind of relay in, okay, now we're in demand. So.
Love it. One quick clarification question. Sorry. Show to drop. The show is at the line of the screen, slightly above or slightly below?
Right at it. Right at it.
And then the dropping, making sure the roll doesn't happen.
You're just trying not to let the guy roll behind you. And honestly, both of our centers, I mentioned they did a poor job, I thought, in the first game. I thought overall, I didn't really teach it that well, but part of that is they did such a good job catching on naturally throughout the year. They had a really good feel for not letting the roll guy behind them. So it's like, okay, they kind of get it. I don't need to spend all this time being super detail oriented. So I feel like at the level, just like it discourages a 3 enough. And it's like, okay, if you're going to shoot a contested 3 as a high school kid over a hand, unless it's just a special player, we're normally going to welcome that. So.
Love it. Talk to me a little bit about what, if anything, you guys are tracking in game, and what, if anything, is important to you on a box score, and then how that changes or motivates performance in any way for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a math whiz, but I am a nerd. Like I like the analytics, but for us, it's just what I have access to, with like people and stuff. So really, I just have one of my assistants do a box score for both teams. So at least I can see rebounding numbers. And sometimes I'll be back like, gosh, dang, that guy's got 14.5. I didn't even realize from the other team. And sometimes I'll miss a guy how well or efficiently another guy's playing to switch a matchup. So that's really all we have. We'll put our stuff in synergy, so we get the basic synergy team stats and percentages as well as individual. So we were fortunate to have that as well. But again, you're not getting that in game, or that's more data over, the season, not game specific. So I wish we had access to more, but just at this level compared to like even the Big East, it's like night and day what you're looking at. So
You say even the Big East, like it's lower almost a little bit. I'm like, no, man, that's they got access to a lot
compared
of
to the
stuff.
NBA, I think the NBA seems to be on a whole different stratosphere, right? Of like you hear, like I listen to a lot of podcasts, like, hey, and drops, this was their percentage and their points per
Yeah,
possession and switches, and when this guy dribbles it this many times, their points per, it's like stats that you hear these guys dropping on the NBA stuff. Like I don't like we had a lot of good stuff at Xavier, but it seems like the NBA is like a whole nother because you only have 30 teams, right? So
it's unbelievable the difference. Like I know you were a video guy and you're probably ahead of me in terms of your working ability with those kinds of things. But like I think the tool is called Second Spectrum that they have. And
yeah,
like to be able to, hey, I want to see every time Trey Scotty's involved in a stagger and they can just pull that up for this. Like, give me a break. Like what kind of tools do you guys have that you can just everything and anything that you want type deal?
yeah, for sure.
Um, so talk to me a little bit about your rotations and matchups and all that. You mentioned you're only really playing like 5.5. So are those 5.5 getting more information? Do they have different expectations placed upon them? Do they sort of know when and if they are going to come out in the game? Like, do you sub based on certain patterns? Give me like background on that sort of stuff.
Well, to answer your question about when kids are coming in and out, regardless of, I'm big on telling kids before games where they kind of stand, and we try to keep rotation consistently in the first half. Hey, like my assistant would do the subbing. He did subs and matchups defensively. So I let him kind of like, hey, like you need to focus in on this kind of thing. And so kids still get surprised, man. Probably no different than college, or like kids get surprised and they get taken out of the game, even if they've gotten taken out that game point the whole year or whatever. It's just the nature of the beast, I think, with teenagers and parents, honestly. So like you try to do your best to give that information on the front end, but again, it's there always seems to be some surprise. But yeah, I mean, do they know anything differently than normal? No. I mean, those guys knew coming into the game. I talked to those guys like, with losing our backup center, we only had 2 centers because, like, again, I'm not big on having 4 centers in 2022. I just don't want to play that way. So if I have
Right.
4, all right, I've already got one who thinks he should be starting, regardless of who it is. The other one's going to think they should be starting. Well, I had 2 more to the mix. I mean, I'm asking to have a bomb strapped to my car. You know what I mean? So to have the one kid out, thankfully, it was only this time of the year. We had one other period earlier. We were missing the other kid for a couple games. I played him, he was used to playing about 24 minutes a game out of 40. He went up to about 36, 35, 36. And then I went like 5 minutes of like 5 guards forwards. So I had like 2 guys 6'6", 2 guys 6'5". Both the 6'6" guys could rebound and were physical, thankfully. So like they were able to kind of, they could do some of the stuff you're seeing with some of the modern day basketball. Really could have gone into it more at times throughout the season, looking back to the 5-out stuff, but they knew going in what we were going to have to experience. And again, we just running sets, putting in different flows offensively. I mean, defensively, it's kind of easy. Like, hey, if you're a switch guy, you're a switch guy. Like our point guard was slim, but he was tough. So I felt like if he got switched on, he did a great job front. And it was like he barely got beat. I felt like in a post up all year. Where he hurt was on an offensive rebound when he got switched onto a 5, which we got to get better at. But defensively, I think it's easy. To me, the hard part about that stuff is offensively. Like when we're running our 4-out 1 in continuity, and we've only been drilling 2 guys as the 1 in guy all year. Well, now when the one's out, what are we running? To me, that was like the more difficult stuff to figure out with the smaller rotation. So,
Gotcha. Makes sense. Do you do anything that's sort of like a post-game report or about, like you mentioned, it could take almost up to 2 days to get the game film, etc. But do you evaluate what you've given your guys in pre-game or leading into the game information-wise against what actually happened in the game, and then sort of evaluate like okay, maybe I needed to do more here, more there? And is something like that like a written or a video report?
Yeah, I don't have anything written formally for myself or the team. Again, I think it's more just like time. Like truthfully, when it comes to film, like I value a lot more time working guys out. That's just
Right.
like my general year one prep school philosophy. I'm going to if I'm going to watch, am I going to watch a fifth game on film of a team to prep, or am I going to spend an extra hour in the gym with guys? I usually pick the gym. And so like really, I don't. Again, maybe I'm in the wrong here, but I don't really see a huge value in that. At least not the best use of my time probably in season. And so yeah, I mean, we'll definitely watch film and follow up, and hey, you guys did a great job with this, or you guys did a horrible job with that. But really, that follow up is the film session. With
Right.
the team film session afterward, I guess we would fit that. But it's not exactly what it's not as formal across the board as you're potentially indicating. So
And nothing wrong with that at all. It's interesting with this, like, the expression "a thousand ways to skin a cat," so to speak, or whatever. It's like, just like you said, I've been a coach at a small college. I've been a coach at a prep. It's all a matter of like time management and what you value and what you assess that you think you need with these particular guys, and then implementing from there for sure. Unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to get into a bit of film with you. As I mentioned, sort of pre-talk here. I'm going to play each clip 2-3 times. I'll sort of fumble through a description one of those times. And then really it's just a matter of anything you see. We want to have a film session with Coach Scotti. What would he like, dislike? What would he do different? What would he applaud? What would he criticize? Anything along those lines. So let me know, is this playback speed okay for you?
yeah, that's good.
All right, perfect. So my note in this was just that basically it's their first play of the game, and that you guys started in what was a 2-3. It looked like I didn't really see very much for the rest of the game. You did kind of mention in the talk just now that you would show sometimes and then move into man halfway through the clip. So I actually kind of think that's sort of what happened now after hearing that. And for anybody who's listening, basically the ball starts in the offensive left slot. We dribble to starts in the offensive right slot, dribble to the middle of the floor. There's a shallow cut to the nail, kind of fumbled a little bit, moved to the right wing. We one more to the corner. He misses the shot. There's an offensive rebound attempt. And then we put it back up to the top and he misses the three and we get the defensive rebound. So talk to me, what do you like? What do you not like? What do you see? All those fun things.
Yeah. So again, I'm not good at teaching a 2-3. I'll admit that. And again, the reason we went to it was a lot of necessity. And so I'm sure like a Syracuse assistant is like, like wanting to punch me in the face as he watches this 2-3. But it's like, yeah, obviously we don't want that shot in the corner to happen as easily. Like that wing needs to bump down and that guard should be taking the wing, etc. But the first thing that pops up to me, right, because we've emphasized all year is boxing out. And it's like you see here, right? Like we're not really being too physical. It's like, number 4, I'm really hard on him. He's the kid sitting under the rim. Well, he's got offers from Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Gonzaga's trying to bring him out and things like that. So like he's super talented, he was our leading rebounder. But my beef with him was like, it's a tough thing. It's like the guy who goes and gets it, how hard do you harp on him when he doesn't box out? And that's an answer I'm still searching for. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6", has a 48-inch vertical. So he's producing results. But there's also these clips like this, right? He just kind of gets shoved under. And, fortunately, the kid misses the second shot. But to me, that's something I got to figure out as a coach going into year 2, how to handle those situations. We got to get way better across the board hitting. But for me personally, that strikes way more of a chord than even the shot against the 2-3. And again, obviously, we didn't do a great job in the 2-3. But besides just telling that wing to bump down, like, again, I'm not an expert in this field. Really, we were just trying to disguise it for 10 seconds. So
Like it. It's interesting because it raises the same question to me as to what are you okay with versus what do you want to emphasize in terms of the rebounding. So I'm more of a go get it guy. I will be very transparent about it. Whereas like there's a lot of coaches who are really like be more of a box out guy, and I'm sure there's some sort of happy medium among the two. But for me, it's like if I'm telling guys to be more of a go get it guy, there's definitely going to be times where this is going to happen. am I okay with that or am I not?
For sure. And again, I need to study up more on this in the offseason with like Caden specifically, because like to me, I was trying to explain to him, okay, like, can you at least give a look to your guy in the area? If your guy's not going, go get it. But if he
Right.
is like on like a straight crash, like shoot, you may at least need to give him like a little forearm shiver before you go in. I feel like he just went chin on the rim and would walk in every time regardless, which I felt like even though he was getting us 9, and he's an elite offensive rebounder, so really he might have only been getting 6, and I say only, he might have only been getting 6 defensive. Like obviously that's incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Again, I just feel like as a team, we were an elite offensive rebounding team. We were horrible as a defensive rebounding team. So like for him, I'm still figuring that out now. The 6'9" center, he's up to 6'10" now. He's got like a Big Ten body, like he is 260 pounds. I compare him to the kid that was at Purdue, blanking on his name, Trevion Williams. That's like his playing style. He's not a go get it guy. If he doesn't box out, I'll freak out because he's not getting him out of his area. But he is 260 and he's got a big lower half. So it's like that's his weapon. Is like he needs to be moving guys out of the way. Like he's not going up and just snatching the ball out of the air with his vertical. So like for really everybody on the team except number 4, I would be mad if they're not hitting because none of those guys are exceptional vertical athletes. Only number 4 is the one. I still got to figure out how I want to coach that going forward. So
this is also, not to dwell on this clip, but this is also a bit of a unique rebound in that this area is where the ball is most likely coming.
Yep.
So in his mind, he probably thinks, I've cleared it out. It's going to pop off. I'm going to be able to get this and go. And then, it's a bit of bad luck that it takes the kind of bounce that it does and goes to the front of the rim on the side where the ball came from, right? So It's like maybe he's just kind of, he's still got to make contact or at least give a look, like you say, but like maybe he's just kind of let it go in terms of, it's probably not going right there.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm fine with admitting what I don't know. And with him, I'm still like Tyreek Jones. When I was at Xavier, like Dan could attest to him if he's still listening. Like he led the Big Eastern rebound in like 2 years in a row. He never boxed out, ever. But he would go get you 15. So it's like it's tough.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's the better way to go. Certain guys develop a better feel by tracking the ball and just sort of knowing where it's coming off.
For sure.
This next clip is your first play. It's a horns action. We step up to ball screen, kind of miss it a little bit. We hand off on the offensive left side of the floor. There's a pin down on the help side. We get nothing out of the initial action, so we move second side, and then we move third side and fourth side. And then from here, we just put it to the wing and play a little bit of a dribble attack, get nothing out of it, put it back to the slot, and shoot a contested 3, which goes. So talk to me about play after play. Talk to me about execution of action. Talk to me about everything you see that's in here.
So that was a new play that we had put in practice, drew it up on the ATO. We messed it up. And so, okay, that's fine. Now we're in spread, which is our 4-out, 1 in continuity. And the biggest thing is those 4 guys out there. Okay, it's pass and cut away. Fill those 4 spots, 2 corners, 2 slots. And from there, we're getting into a ball screen or a zoom. And so if you want to pause it right here, okay. So when you fill those 4, the guy with the ball at any time can call flip and he can go hand it to obviously the corner, or he can go hand it to the guy who's coming up to the opposite slot. Okay. So if he calls a flip and he hands it to the guy in the middle, it's a middle ball screen. So point guard hands that off. He sprints corner, right? Number 5 who's coming up, he comes off the ball screen. 24 is supposed to roll, and then number 4 would trade behind. Or you could call a flip, hand it off with the sideline. The 5 comes up, he gets 1 foot on each side of the 3-point line. You throw it to him, both guys are cutting off and playing a zoom. Just like pass it to him, back cut, or come off. That's kind of our continuity. And so here we don't do a good job getting into anything, but at least we do get some reversals. Keystone's a good defensive team. They have good athletes, and honestly, we don't get anything out of it. It's a bad shot, but Rodrigo he's a good player, and sometimes good players make tough shots. So
some good players make good shots. So do you do anything with your guys about shot selection? Like, do you have sort of like a
Oh,
chart as to what's okay and what's not there? Or do you
it's
provide
not.
feedback? And
Yeah, we coached the heck out of shot selection, and honestly, we were pretty good throughout the year. But and that's where like I talked about 40 from three. I think it was two things. We had good shooters coming in, or three things. We had good shooters coming in, right? Whoever coached them or taught them did a good job, right? Number
right,
two, we were in the gym relentlessly as a team. It was our best team as number three. We coached the crap out of it, and guys don't know. Like I'm going through my AAU guys right now. I'm watching film with them at night, one by one of all their shots. Hey, and I'm pausing it as it leaves their hand. I'll say good or bad. Right. I don't care if it goes in. Is that a good shot or a bad shot? And we did
right.
that with our guys all the time. We would do, guys, like I said, all the time, I would try to make this an emphasis in our team film. Okay, here's 10 of us moving the ball. That's great. Well, maybe the next week, hey guys, here's 10 of us. You see how in spread, you guys just attack with no reversals and you shot a contested 15-footer. Like the guys think I'm like an analytical nerd because I was explaining to them one time, like, okay, if you in 6 possessions, you make 2 threes, they're like, how many points? I'm like, they're like 6. I'm like, what if you make 3 twos? They're like 6. I'm like, so do you see why 33% from 3 is the same as 50% from 2? You would have thought I was like Mark Zuckerberg. You know what I'm saying? Like the way, but they've never been explained that stuff. And so again, yeah, I think it's huge. And the other thing in prep is like all these kids are here for basketball. It's not like all these kids go to the same high school. Some play baseball, some play like all these kids and their families, more importantly, they care so much about this. It's like if we're an unselfish team by nature, like it can get out of control fast, like really, really fast, truthfully.
Right. Right. And do you feel like you're met with much resistance initially in terms of the shot selection conversation? Or
A little
do you
bit,
feel
but by nature, we had a pretty unselfish team. Like our point guard, like the kid who made this shot, like he's an incredible passer. And like from day one, he was a sophomore, voted team captain. He really bought in. He probably deserves the most credit. He bought into like being a guy because he can throw passes right, left hand that many high school kids can't make. But I
right?
felt like in his AAU when I watched him the summer before, he'd be taking bad ones. And so that was like his point of emphasis for him. So I think he bought in. And then I think like some of those other guys, like naturally as time went on, they bought in. We had a couple of guys who were like good catch and shoot, but not great off the bounce. So like by nature, they're not driving into traffic and shooting because like they're not great off the bounce anyway. So I think some of it was lucky with whom we inherited. And I think they took it actually. I think they took coaching on shot selection really pretty well. So
Love it. This was just a little tidbit in one set early. You guys started with an under here in terms of your ball screen coverage. And I was just wondering if
yes.
that was by design or by scout, because I
Yeah.
noticed much of the rest of the game, you're switching stuff.
Yeah.
You mentioned.
So usually we use like a volleyball line is kind of the point of reference for
Right.
these courts. Now, for some reason, the volleyball line on this court almost looks farther out. I don't know why that is than normal on a lot of the courts we played on this year. But the volleyball line is usually the point of reference. Like, okay, if the ball screen's above the volleyball line, we're getting under. If it's below, then you got to go over. And so you could almost consider that volleyball line a little bit over where imagine the NBA 3. It's kind of like if it's like 5 feet out past that NBA 3, and even right here, it's like, okay, I would have lived with him probably going over or under in this situation. But also the kid with the ball, like I said, is electric. I mean, he is really, really good. And so
Right.
like Rodrigo getting under, knowing this kid, he's a left-hander, getting underneath, like I didn't mind that at all, especially because he made it there. So
Love it. And you're talking about the 3 meter line on the volleyball court. This one right here where my cursor is.
like the one in between the 3-point line and half court, I can't see your cursor because I think my thing's in the way,
Sorry.
but
You
the
can
volleyball
add
line
it.
in between the 3-point line and half court is normally good. Yeah. So like normally the rule of thumb is if you're below that, usually we're going over. But again, that line almost looks farther out to half court than the
It
line.
does look a little bit. It does like there's more distance 3 point line to the 3 meter line there than or the
Than
10 foot line.
Yeah, but like where we practice, that's our line that we use. Like we would tape it when I was at Indiana, and so it just was kind of naturally where the volleyball line was. So that was the natural point of reference. But like in this example, like Rodrigo, the point like our point guard's playing hard, he's getting under. Like I'm gonna live with that. I'm not gonna be like, hey, like you're like, yeah, if he's like being lazy and going under, then I might have a problem with it. But that's never his issue, his motor. So
Now, a lot of bigs, like in this case, the screener number 10, will bury guys on rolls. Do you
yep.
allow emergency switching with your 5 if that's the case, or is the expectation get back no matter what?
Yeah, I do allow emergency switching, but honestly, our guards did a pretty good job getting through for the most part this year. So I can't count a ton of examples where that actually ended up burning us. And then again, with so many 1 through 4 switches, it seemed like there was as many 1-5 traditional ball screens throughout the year as maybe you would think or guess. And so again, like those examples were not as prevalent to where it was like a huge point of emphasis. But like, did we cover it in practice emergency switch? Yeah. Was it an everyday thing? No.
Love it. So next we'll get into, I would call this almost one of your staples. This set was an Iverson cut within UCLA. The ball gets reversed, and then there's cross screen, down screen happening. So here we go for anybody who's listening. It's Iverson from offensive left to offensive right side of the floor. Then there's the UCLA happening. The second of the two forwards that are the screeners pops. We reverse the ball and we go right away into cross screen, down screen action on the other side of the floor. We get a post touch. This shot gets contested and blocked, but you go to this action a lot in the game. Talk to me about this set for you. Maybe any wrinkles, maybe what you're always looking for, anything that you like execution wise out of it.
Yeah, so my assistant brought forth this set. It was one of our best sets all year. I mean, Lathan, who catches the ball, he is a dominant low post. Like, he is an old school, ridiculous touch either hand. Like I said, 260 pounds. Like, he averaged 15 points a game as a sophomore, which is really good, obviously. And so this is one of the things we ran a lot to get him a deep catch because he was really effective. Now, obviously, the guy setting the cross screen there that you would usually be Cam Kraft. In this game, this kid shot 43 on the year. He got high D2 offers throughout the season. So he was a really good shooter as well. And so he's the screener of that. But really the set I like because it gets ball reversal. And so just between the Iverson cut to, like you said, the UCLA, it's really supposed to be one dribble like he did off the ball screen. I feel like the natural movement, the other coach would be like, hey, cross screen, cross screen, cross screen. And even though they yell that out all year, as games went on, I feel like no one could ever – I felt like we got into the post every time, honestly.
Yeah, and deep touch, right? Like, so here's my 2 questions that are associated with that. You've got a traditional back to the basket kind of guy who's really good at it. How much time do you spend working on the deep seal and the post entry pass, which in my opinion are both dying arts?
Yeah. Well, with Lathan, number 24. So Lathan's got a unique background. His dad was the best player at Bradley in the Missouri Valley when they went to the Sweet 16 2006. Mom played Division I. He grew up in a bunch of different countries, a lot in France when his dad was playing pro. So he's really skilled. Like, if you saw him just like dribble and shoot, you'd be like, gosh dang, like he has got some unique talents for a big guy. So I felt like he was too in love with trying to be a guard, which, like, you see these clips, it's hard to imagine, but he really has incredible ball skills. And so the physicality of duck-ins was a point of emphasis for him specifically the entire year. The sets we'd run, player development, 1-on-0 workouts, 3-on-3. I like to play 3-on-3 small-sided games. Him, like, using his big body, that was like a huge point of emphasis for him specifically. Now, the post-feed stuff, we didn't cover it a ton, but honestly, our team did a good job with it naturally. So it was like, okay, we're doing a pretty good job throwing the ball in the post. We've already mentioned a couple areas where I thought we were horrific: transition D, defensive rebounding. So I took all that time and I was allocating it really in other areas. So
I like it. I just really think that the post feed is such a dying art. I can't remember what game it was I watched recently. I think it was a Boston Celtics one, and it might have been Tatum guarding the ball. I don't know, but like the post entry pass from the offensive right wing was stolen by the ball defender. Like, it was just a bounce pass and the ball defender got it. I'm like, how does that even happen? Like, what are we doing here? And he was gapping it. Like, so he bounced past it right into his hand. And I'm like, that's just terrible. Like, it's really bad.
I don't think Rodrigo even does here. My general rule, he's right on. My general rule is you got to be below the free throw line. So, like, you want to be like, if you're above in that slot, you need to break the free throw line and throw it below. That's kind of my general rule of thumb. But that being said, we didn't do that every day in practice. So I don't want to be like our kids. If you asked our kids what's your emphasis on feeding the post, I don't even think that they would know it. That's how little we talked about it.
We got an NBA guy in the chat saying boo to the post entry pass at that level. It's not part of the game anymore. Apparently, we're moving away from it.
It's fun.
77 to a pin down. This is a set that I actually personally run. I notice you run it with an empty corner on the ball side. For anybody who's listening, the ball starts on the offensive left slot. 77 is a double drag or double, whatever you want to call it. The empty is now being filled by the player, so maybe it wasn't supposed to be like that initially. And then the first screener dives, and the second screener goes and basically cleans them up for a shot up top. So when the ball comes across to the offensive right side, we just hit the guy popping, pop to top shot. It's contested. It's a pretty good shot. Talk to me overall about the set. Is it a play caller? Are you always only looking for the one option? How well do you think you ran it? And is that corner supposed to be empty, or are we just late?
Yeah, corner's supposed to be filled. Now, number 2, the reason he's slow is he's our point guard. And so he's used to probably like originating the action. But number 23, who was like a 6'6" combo forward, the best thing he actually does is dribble and pass. He's really, really good. He's going to Morehouse. He had like 3 D1 offers at one point. So like I was comfortable like, hey, like Rob, you bring it up in the dead ball, it's gonna be the point guard. Live action, I'm calling our double drag stuff a lot. And so if he was the handler, he was allowed to get the point guard and kind of shift him corner. So we would run a lot of double drag stuff. The basic rules, the 5 is always rolling. The non-5 and the action is popping. I would want the number 5 who's in it to be in it a lot, and our Cam Crafter. I wanted our best 2 shooters and the other guy to screen as much as possible. They could slip at any time, especially if they were the second screener. I'm encouraging a lot of slip action from the shooter. And then I had a couple specialty calls. This was one of them, obviously, where it's some sort of second action after the pin down. I thought this one was really good for our personnel because we're putting a shooter and a pin down, which you'd be surprised how often this was wide open. But number 2, you'll see number 24 ducking in, option 1 shot, option 2, over the head pass into him for a duck in. And again, it was actually a really good action for us. I should have put it in earlier in the season. So
yes, I love this action. And just like you said, you would be amazed how often this shooter is open. Also has shot fake drive left, I think, a lot too. Talk to me about the depth of seal. What are sort of like your teaching points for number 24, I think it is, your big kid, in terms of that high-low pass? Are you okay with how high he is there? Or, like, are there markers on the floor you're telling him to look for?
I think it's more on the cutter. I think it's more on the cutter because, like, the point of emphasis would always be, like, to number 5 is, like, you need to wait till he comes and gets you on the block. Right. Because you'll see here, like he's already a little bit too high, and like you just want that screener to just turn around and bury him right there. So there, like he's posting a little higher than I like, but I think that's more on the cutter than it is the screener in that instance. That's just my opinion.
Love it. The next one is this is an ATO, I think, to start the second quarter, if I remember correctly. This is kind of an NBA set. I don't know if you stole it there, but there's a lot of flip action that the NBA is running now. So this is just a pass. There's an away screen and a pass to the cutter coming off of it. He flips it right back, or at least he would if he caught it clean. And then it gets picked up and you continue on with your action. So that person who was coming and was flipping it back goes down to the block, and then it accepts a pin down screen from your initial away screener. You get the ball rotated up top. I'm sure you get a lot of shots out of this up top. We get nothing here. There's a high-low look that we don't accept, and then we one more into the wing and drive the ball baseline for a contested layup attempt. Talk to me about the options. Talk to me, is it one you're running consistently? Did you just draw it up specific for here? What do you see?
We drew this one up, the specific flip it back pin down, but the screen away to the flip back, that we have a series. We had a series for that. Okay. Now, I went away from that series in this weekend a ton because that's our quick series. So like we're trying to get a quick shot, quick action, get the flow. I talked about the depth. We were more running Iverson horns action in this game in the half court because I felt like we were playing slower that way. But we still knew the origins of that. First look is always, again, number 10. Again, he's another really good catch and shoot option. So first option is always just like turn to catch. Like if you have wide open three, I was never around a team that ran this before, so I didn't have a great feel for how to teach it. Early in the year, we were catching the ball. If we didn't have a shot, we were trying to drive it, but like there's nothing there because that's not the action. So as time got on, I got better explaining this because if you don't have a wide open shot, hand that mother effer off. That as the season went on. And again, usually after we hand that off, now we're getting into like we had probably 2 or 3 plays we ran consistently throughout the year, and then a couple of different ATOs we'd run as well. But the whole, screen away to a flip back to the point guard, initiating the offense, that to us was pretty natural by nature. So then you add that pin down. We would run that in practice. We draw it up. Okay. Now after a timeout, we're reminding them. So you see it's the beginning of the first play of the second quarter. So we're drawing that up. Remind them, hey guys, remember we ran this in practice the other day. Just a reminder, here's what it looks like. Yada, yada, yada. So, and obviously the fumbled handoff, screws up the whole play. So
yeah, for sure. It was the only instance of this series that I found in this game. Maybe I missed 1 or 2, but it was the only time that
we avoided it for the most part. I just felt because normally we're getting quicker, shots in the first 15 seconds of the action with this. So I went away from it a bunch in this game.
I remember I did a Utah Jazz playbook almost 2 years ago now, and they ran a ton out of this series. Got a lot of really good looks out of it.
Yeah.
Like deep seal, slips down on the block, shooters coming off, all kinds of stuff happening out of it. So I was like, hey, I really like this action a lot. I've actually never really ran it as a coach, so it's interesting. I'm curious. Sorry.
What we do a lot is on the flip back. So you'll see 24, he's setting this screen, and then a lot of times you hand back and he would just turn around and set a ball screen for the point guard, and then we're just playing. And so on the backside, guys are having to decide to help in on the roll. Our point guard was really good at throwing those cross-court passes. So really it was like the idea for us putting the action was, okay, can we get a cheap one for a shooter right away? And then the second option is, okay, let's put our point guard in a playmaking position. We would also do a lot of twist action on the backside. So the guy in the corner, he twists around the wing. Now the wing's coming back off a pin down. We got a lot of that. We got a ton of threes off that. Then again, same thing. You don't have it. It's right back into the handoff. So for the defense, it might be a little bit confusing because it starts different. But for us, it's just like it's the same read. Most of our guys on the team are really doing the same action they do with just a little bit of fluff at the beginning. So
talk to me a little bit about your skill development sessions. You mentioned you do a lot of like 3-on-3 type stuff. Will you run, like, let's say the gentleman who fumbles this pass, number
10, yeah.
8, number 8, I think it is?
10, sorry.
Number 10, will his skill development sessions include like running these routes before shooting the ball type deal? Like, is that what it would look like for you? Or are you doing more individual skill work stuff that's outside of the game actions that you actually kind of run?
So for him, that kind of rep, he's getting a lot more in a 1-on-0 setting, just like to shoot it. You know what I mean?
Right.
To me, it's a little bit tougher of an action to go a small sided game because like with the spacing in the middle of the court, it's kind of like if a 3-on-3, like to me, I couldn't really figure, and again, maybe someone has to answer this. I couldn't really figure out how to small side game this series real well. So when we're going more the 3-on-3, it'd be like sideline ball screen. Okay. Which would replicate a drag or just like in our spread sideline ball screen stuff. And you can't, if you're on one side of the court, you can't step on the lane line and the weak side. So you've got the whole lane, the whole one side of the floor you're starting on, and you're playing, it's a ball screen roll replace.
Right.
Stuff like that. We talked about our zoom action and spread, a ton of 4-on-4 zooms, right? And then the coach would just occupy the action by helping initiate the offense. But we did a ton of that 3-on-3, 4-on-4 throughout the season because we ran so.
Sorry, Trey, that would be right in your practice, or that would be in skill development?
In practice for the 4-on-4 stuff.
Love it.
But again, to me, it's like, okay, we're getting better at our offense. We're getting more crisp with the actions, but now our guys are actually getting better. Like they're learning, because the way I sell it in recruiting, but I think it's true, is like, okay, almost all you guys are going to have to use ball screens or be in part of ball screen offensively and defensively in Zooms in high school and or in college and the NBA or over wherever your aspirations are to play professionally. And so like this game, we ran more sets than normal because I was trying to control the action with the lack of depth. But for the most part, I would try to go 50%, let you guys play 50%, I'll call something out because I think there's value in like learning how to, make ball screen reads or like space on the weak side. Okay, they're overplaying me. I was about to go get a handoff, but I'm going to back cut as opposed to actually use the zoom action. And so again, we're doing that stuff. It becomes predictable in practice. Like the defense knows what you're doing, but that's the whole point. Okay, I don't care if your teammate knows it's a zoom. If he's denying you, back cut. If you can go get the handoff and play, go get the handoff and play. And so hopefully, expert's a strong word, but I would like to think we were pretty comfortable playing in that stuff as the year went on, just because we did it so often in practice.
Love it. The next one I have is just one that I thought you guys played really good defense on a unique set that they were running. So they had what was supposed to be a stagger away. It doesn't look like the stagger was very clean. And then they turn it into an elevator or a lift set, whatever you want to call it. They get nothing out of either action. And then you guys end up just basically defending and playing well. They go into a top ball screen to try and create, and they just get met by the same athletic player we were talking about defensively. And ball gets stripped, you guys run out the other direction. Talk to me about what you see, what you like in here.
Yeah, well, number one, if you start from the very beginning, we're supposed to chase off screens. Now you see number 10, so he's chasing that first guy, which is what he's supposed to do. And then number 4, Cooper, he's supposed to be 2 eyes on the passer, right? So like even though your guy's setting the screen, you should be buying a second for that guy chasing the off screen, which he does a tremendous job in that clip. The second guy, he chases through the elevator. He does a good job kind of fighting through naturally. This is, like you said, a unique elevator play. We had not seen this a ton before, so we hadn't really scouted it, but he just does a good job figuring it out. Number 2, he just signed with an A10 school. He's a good player. So you see number 2 for us, he does a good job being in the gap. Okay, your position is your help, right? Like whole philosophy of pack line, you're not just swiping in to help once your guy gets beat. He recovers. Number 4 comes in. Like again, we've chased, we figured out the elevator. And now we're finishing up with a good gap and a good switch by number 4, who when he's on defensively is electric, which that's why he's getting the national attention that he is. He had probably his best defensive weekend of the year in this tournament. I was super, super proud of him. And you see with his disruptive, I would even argue he might even be a half step behind what a disruptive switch would look like, but he's so athletic. He can make up ground so fast, and he's there and he creates a turnover, like you said. So
it was almost a mistake involving him in the ball screen, right? Like he can't, like, I think his, like right about here, I think his eyes are wide, like, oh, I'm going to get that. That's mine.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that's why he's got Kansas, Gonzaga, all schools like that calling him. So,
Love it. This one was an interesting action by you guys out of your Iverson type series. And then basically after the first Iverson cut from left to right, the second screener or the second forward pops the opposite direction, and we end up playing on that side of the floor. But then in addition, the first Iverson cut receives a pin down or a pin away for a wide open jump shot, which if I'm not, he ends up missing it there. But talk to me about this action. I love this action a lot. Don't be surprised, Trey, if you see a Canadian team running this sometime soon.
Yeah. Well, for one, we like to run actions that look the same, right? So we've already seen the Iverson to the screen to screener. And so that one, again, we put a left-hander in a position to drive it. He's got the option to score it, but it's really all about getting Cooper coming back on a pin. So he shot, again, you're going to think I'm making this up. The kid that's super athletic, he shot 48% from 3 this year. Now, his shot selection was really good. Really, really good. We didn't run much for him at the beginning of the year, but he got so much better throughout the season. Again, he was in the gym every night. He made so many that we started to run more stuff for him as the season went along as a shooter. And 24 is actually supposed to set a pin there too. He just kind of forgets, it looks like, for a moment. Unfortunately, but it's really supposed to be like a stagger windshield wiper action. Number 5 is he drives at his like messaging. He doesn't quite get there. And this one's like, he's supposed to try to get a piece of the paint. And get that piece of that paint. It's like, okay, you should have a layup, get fouled, or turn back and hit that guy, because as we know, like on post ups or like under out of bounds, like defenders have a hard time seeing out on those. I mean, that's why we preach paint touches, right? Like the percentages go way up offensively. So that's the emphasis to number 5, is to get a paint touch to either score or throw that thing back for a 3. So
love it. One more. It's another Iverson is the next one. This was the figure 8 for a lob. I actually really love this as well. So you get your cutter coming over top, and then he immediately curls in behind and then curls over top for a lob to the rim. Talk to me a little bit about this one. Obviously, there's masking going on here as well, making things look similar. But like everybody's got to be on board and got to be able to run this correctly, especially with the corner coming in for the initial back screen. So what do you
this
see?
is another good look. I mean, listen, he chases that screen around on the back screen, which is what you're looking for. This was another successful play for us throughout the year, but you'll see the first back screen, number 5, again, he's a shooter. So you're putting your shooter, he's setting 2 back screens. And you'll see, so the first one, you're telling the center, hey, get the heck out, get to the corner. So number 24, it's like, get out of the way. And then number 4, he's just curling. He's supposed to just be, again, fluff, almost make it seem like he's not involved in the action by cutting away. Your whole goal is to make that guy chase you, throw that thing up there. And again, this is one of the few times all year that it was this wide open. We didn't go get that thing. But again, it's not a great pass. But again, I mean, we probably had a dunk on this a game. It seemed like for the last 10 games of the season. I stole this play from Bellarmine. Bellarmine, they would run, if you wind back to go back to where Iverson is happening. So what they did was pause it right here. They would just have number 4 pop out, throw it to number 4, and then the back screen would be for the guy on the right side elbow. So back screen, back. But for us, Cooper, I try to keep him only at the 3 spot, which for us was in the corner. So I love the action. I'm like, how can I get him to lob in this play? But I didn't want to put him at the elbow because, again, I'm not trying to give it away. Again, I'm probably giving some of these coaches too much credit, because in college, if he's at the elbow, and you're studying that, okay, it's the lob just by his alignment. So I don't want to change the alignment or the action. So that's kind of why I tweaked the action a little bit. And again, I didn't know if it would work or not. Honestly, when we put it in, I just kind of experimented with it, but honestly, it worked like the first time we ran the game and kept working. So I usually threw this in 1 to 2 times a game. So
love it. Is 5, who's setting this back screen, the second one, is he a good shooter? And do you ever pop him here type deal?
Honestly, like it worked every time for the first action. So we had this in with like 10 games left in the season. I mean, again, my first year head coach. And so as the season went on, I got better at putting in stuff that worked and getting more familiar with our personnel. Right. And so honestly,
I would imagine that this blue arrow, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Trey. I would imagine that this blue arrow stays home a lot. And he's just naked coming to the rim. Like there's nobody there with him.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so like the pop is probably a good action to like point to, and like, yeah, we taught pop, but like, again, normally we would pop. We're just like, hey, let's get right into a second action in our spread. Let's get right to a flip middle ball screen or a flip zoom. But truthfully, this was like either we couldn't get the entry pass, but once we got the entry pass, we almost always got the look. So
you good on time, Trey? I got, I think, 3 more in here.
Yep, I'm good.
This is just a variation of your 77 that we sort of talked about a little bit here. Nothing too out of the ordinary here, but I mean, here's your double or your 77 going offensive left to offensive right. You get the reversal and then the immediate high-low entry pass, deep seal, ends up just finishing it. Love the action. Is it a call to get it in, or is it really just sort of like a play and see what's going on type deal?
We're just playing. We run double drag was the first thing I put in at the beginning of the season. Like when we played our first scrimmage, we only had this in, nothing else. Cause I was like, I just want to be really good at double drags. Like, again, I think they're confusing the guard. Like, I think they're hard to teach guys with different personnel in the action and things of that nature. So again, just like, this is our basic rules, like 5, you're rolling, whoever else is that guard in the action, because we were 4 round 1, you're popping. And this is just them like taking the habits that we've been teaching them all year and doing a good job executing it. So
I noticed that your second screener, this gentleman here,
Yep.
is on this side of the rim line, on the ball side of the rim line. Is
Not
that
supposed
by design for you?
not
Because
supposed to
I see
be.
a lot of teams running that second screener almost like in the other slot over there.
Yeah, I like to go free throw line extended, and then the other one like another step in or two from the free throw line, not all the way past the midline. The reason it's not free throw line extended is I think it gives 23 a better chance to get downhill.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And sometimes I almost like to line it at a downward angle. So the second screener is a little bit lower on the court, again, to help the
Right.
down. Honestly, him being over there, he wasn't really supposed to, but it just worked out on this one. So
Love it. Next one we got. This is up 3. This is end of game. This is just really showcase a little bit of what you have put in and worked with your guys on throughout the year. So for anybody who's listening, they've just moved to being up 3. Keystone's just scored. They're under out, and Keystone decides to put in full court pressure. And I think your guys just obliterate it, right? So the double comes, and there's the diagonal, and the pass underneath. Talk to me about how your guys are so calm. What are sort of your teaching points against full court man? And when in games you're teaching them to anticipate it.
yeah, well, we weren't this good all year, truthfully speaking.
Fair.
and really, okay, so number 4, like, is supposed to be looking at number 5. And again, just as he does a good job, if he leaves, you come back. Very, very simple. Opposite guy, fill middle, exactly as you said. Again, like, our rules here aren't very complex. I think the simpler the better, especially with high school kids. But again, when it's like a man-to-man run jump, just like you just can't, like early in the year, we just pass it and we're just looking at the opposite corner on the other side of the court without thinking twice about that guard. So again, if you just got to keep an eye on that guy. And if he turns around, you just come back and help, just as they did. And we did a good job, like you said, on this clip. So
Love it. And then these guys, they make a big shot here. So basically the scenario is they make it, they draw within 2. And my little note is just sort of like, what's the instruction? Because you do take the timeout here. But for anybody who's listening, they attack the offensive right wing, and they just one more into the corner. He hits a semi-contested because it's a pick and pop type action, and we had sort of showed. And then it's 5 or 6 seconds left, 4 seconds left when it goes through. Talk to me about what you're saying in that huddle. And what's the guidance to your guys at that point in the game?
I just wanted to draw something up, honestly, to get our best free throw shooters in a position to do something. I had asked, every tournament is different, so I had asked before, hey, if they score, does that clock wind out? Do we need to take it out or not? And so
Right.
Really based on that question, I would love to just let that clock roll out and have that be the game. But in this specific tournament, they were stopping the clock. And again, I did not think we did a very good job there. And it also, with some of our, we lost a point guard throughout the season. He left, truthfully speaking. And then our 2 guard is out of these last 3 games, not healthy. And so guys that are up normally we have guys in different positions than they're used to being. So even though our traditional press breaker remain the same, number one, I'm not as comfortable, but also our traditional press breaker is designed to, like, it's a one size fit all versus denial versus 2-1, just to keep things simple. But also, like, I have a couple things I like to draw up that are better against the full out deny. When you're up 2 with 4 seconds, you can see, like, another thing I'm looking for live is look at all this congestion in the lane. Like, maybe if it looks like I can just yell, hey, throw it in, I might do something like that. But I just got that funny feeling and drew something up. So
it's like, for us, we play FIBA and we can advance here, right? So a lot of coaches will just automatically take it. But in order to do so, you have to call it before it goes through. So you take away that option of, just like you said, being able to sort of read the situation, like, hey, can we get this in and we'll have the advantage, versus I think I'm going to call it type deal. You lose a little bit of an advantage for the advantage of gaining the 47 or so feet, whatever it is. My last question, I suppose, would be, throughout the season, You guys are making up your own schedule and playing in various tournaments. And what is it like to play with different rules if you do in different places? You mentioned, figuring out the clock at the end. I always found that this was a huge complication with coaching high school, and that up here we have both FIBA and Federation rules. We have certain tournaments with shot clocks, certain tournaments without. Sometimes we're playing 4-8, sometimes we're playing 4-10s, sometimes we're playing 2-20s. Like it's a big mess up here. Do you experience that at all? And if you do, like, what do you do to sort of handle it?
I mean, it's a mess. I mean, we played in Spain this year, playing like, we've been all over the place. And so, but number one, I don't care. I just like, could I sit there and read through these rules every time and study them? And like, but again, like, I just get way more worried about teaching our guys basketball. And like, so yeah, if that's like a shot clock situation, then we'll cover that generally speaking. But am I the guy, on the trip there, like, reading the rules? I just go up to the refs before the game and ask them how many timeouts do I got? How many fouls did these guys got? When does the clock stop in unique situations? Anything that you guys think is unique to that's not,
Right.
and honestly, am I changing coaching based on many of those? No. So
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, that's the end for me. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to jump in. But if not, Trey, I want to take a second and just say, like, thank you for taking the time. You're still actively doing stuff with your guys. You got guys on campus and all that. But I also want to take a second and sort of give you one of these. I think that was excellent in terms of being able to listen and hear you share. You're definitely on top of your stuff, man. Like, clearly you've got good personnel, etc. But like, you know what you're doing, man. And it's always a pleasure to sit around and hear people share and be open, but also to get educated by them, from them, etc. So thank you for that. And thanks again for the time. It's a pleasure.
for sure, man. I've been fortunate to be around a lot of really good dudes and coaches. And again, like, I spent 8 years at the high major level being a guy in the background. And so just to kind of experiment with some of those ideas and implement a little bit what you see on a Zoom or in an NBA game, or heck, Twitter is an unbelievable resource too. So it's been a blast. But just thanks for having me on. And anybody who ever wants to just chop it and talk ball, or see something I can do better, if you have a philosophy on boxing out for a great rebounder, or the 2-3 zone, I have plenty of areas I need help in as well. But again, it was always fun talking ball, and appreciate you having me on. So
My pleasure. Next week is episode number 100, so please tune in for that. And everybody who listens or jumps on, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you continue to find value in this. And the same way that Trey says, if there's any way that it can be better for you, please reach out and let me know. Trey, thanks again. I'm going to stop the recording, hang out for a minute or two. Let me know what you think.